How do you define power? Most men out there mistakenly believe that power is a fist. They think it is the ability to scream louder than their opponent in an argument. They think it is the immediate retaliation when their ego is bruised. But that is a fatal misunderstanding. That is not power. That is weakness masquerading as noise. That is the reflex of a cornered animal, not the thinking of a man of intellect. Let's look at the truth. Anger, at its core, is a form of intellectual bankruptcy. Every time you lose control, every time your face turns red and your heart races because of an anonymous comment or a terrible driver, you are personally handing the remote control of your life to someone else. You are allowing external circumstances to dictate your heart rate, your blood pressure, and the quality of your day. The true strength of a mature man is measured by his ability to maintain absolute stillness when the entire world around him is trying to make him mad. Today, we are not going to give you cliché advice like, just calm down. We are going to dive deep into the anatomy of a cool head. We are going to unlock the forgotten arsenal of Roman emperors and war psychologists to build an impenetrable defense system. Welcome to the man, the Stoic mind, the 10 layers of the inner Citadel. And we will begin with the first layer, the heavy artillery capable of extinguishing anger instantly. Part 1. The nuclear arsenal, immediate damage control. Principle number 1. The sovereign gap. To master yourself, you must understand the biology of anger. When you receive an insult or face an unexpected event, let's call this the stimulus, this information enters your brain. However, there is a flaw in human biological design. The information reaches the amygdala, the center of emotion and fear, before it reaches the prefrontal cortex, the center of logic and reason. The amygdala reacts in a fraction of a millisecond. It screams, attack. That is the amygdala hijack mechanism. That is why our first reaction is always hot-headed and thoughtless. Viktor Frankl, the great Austrian psychologist who survived the hell of Nazi concentration camps where he was stripped of everything, standing on the thin line between life and death, distilled a shattering truth. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our freedom and our power to choose our response. The weak man reacts immediately. The strong man responds. The difference lies in who masters this space. So how do you widen that gap when blood is rushing to your head? Apply the 3-second rule. The moment you feel your body heating up, immediately freeze all action. Do not speak, do not text, do not act. First second, inhale deeply. Second second, hold your breath and observe. Separate your ego from the anger. Look at the anger as a foreign object passing through, not as you. Third second, exhale and decide. Only now does the neural signal actually reach the logical brain. That brief silence is the boundary between a wild beast and a sovereign ruler. Whoever masters these 3 seconds masters the game. Let me explain the biological mechanism of why these 3 seconds are so critical. This is not magic. This is neuroscience. When you get angry, your sympathetic nervous system activates the fight or flight mode. Your heart rate skyrockets to pump blood to your muscles, preparing for a brawl. Simultaneously, the brain shuts down energy to the logical thinking centers to focus on survival reflexes. At this moment, your IQ flatlines. You become medically stupider.
Taking that deep breath in the first second is the key to reversing this process. It stimulates the vagus nerve, the part responsible for the parasympathetic nervous system. It sends an urgent chemical signal throughout the body. Cool down. We are not being attacked by a tiger. We are safe. Only when this signal is sent does blood flow back to the prefrontal cortex and your intelligence is restored. Therefore, these 3 seconds are not a concession. They are the process of rebooting the operating system of a king. Principle number 2, destroy expectations. Ask yourself, why do we never get angry when it rains, even though rain soaks our clothes, dirties our shoes, and causes inconvenience? Because we accept rain as a law of nature. We do not expect the sun must shine because I am a good person, but we go crazy when we get stuck in traffic, when a colleague plays dirty, or when we are betrayed. Why? Because we carry within us an implicit arrogance. We expect the world to treat us well just because we are good people. The mathematical formula for anger is simple. Anger equals reality minus expectation. The higher the expectation, the greater the deviation, the more explosive the anger. Expecting the world to treat you well just because you are a good person is as naive as expecting a lion not to eat you because you are a vegetarian. Seneca, the brilliant Stoic philosopher, taught us the technique of premeditation malorum, the premeditation of evils. He advised, never step out the door with the naive hope that everything will go smoothly. Step out with the mindset of a warrior entering enemy territory. Today, it is very likely that I will meet ungrateful, selfish, insolent, and disrespectful people. This is not pessimism. This is a mental vaccine. Every morning, take 1 minute to anticipate the troubles that might occur. When you have preemptively accounted for human flaws, then when the event actually happens, the element of surprise, the primary fuel of shock, is completely neutralized. Instead of exclaiming in misery, "Why are they treating me like this?" you will calmly smile. Ah, this was in the forecast. An ungrateful person has appeared, just as scripted. When you destroy delusional expectations of a perfect world, you become invulnerable to its imperfections. Principle number 3, the predator stare, tactical silence. In nature, which animal is the loudest? It is the small dog barking incessantly out of fear. Which animal is the quietest? It is the lion before it strikes. The same applies in human society. In an argument, the person talking the most, shouting the loudest, and explaining the most is usually the one in the weak position. Noise is just a clumsy cover for insecurity. Conversely, silence weighs the heaviest weight of the 1,000 pounds. Words spoken in anger are often the most honest words, but they cause the greatest damage and cannot be retracted. Once the bullet leaves the barrel, you will spend a lifetime regretting it. When provoked, resist the instinct to explain or argue. Use silence as a psychological attack. Execute the predator stare. Maintain direct and calm eye contact. Completely relax your facial muscles, no frowning, no pursing of lips, and absolutely do not speak a single word for at least 5 to 10 seconds. This silence creates a vacuum in the conversation. It causes extreme confusion for the opponent. They expect you to scream, to react, giving them an excuse to attack further. But when you remain silent, you refuse the invitation to step into the mud with them. They will ask themselves, what is he thinking? Why are not my words having an effect? What weapon does he have? Silence is not surrender. Silence is the loudest roar of self-control. Principle number 4, the poison cup. There is an old proverb that says, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Many men nurse grudges as a source of energy. They think that not forgiving is a punishment for their enemy. But look at the science. When you hate someone, your brain activates the HPA axis, continuously pumping cortisol and adrenaline into your blood. Excess cortisol corrodes the stomach lining, hardens arteries, destroys the immune system, and kills memory neurons. While you are destroying your own body hour by hour, the person you hate is sleeping soundly, traveling, and living happily. Who is suffering the damage here?
Men often dislike the word forgiveness, so let's rename it. Let's call it the purge. Do not view forgiveness as a moral gift to others. View it as an act of detoxification for your own body. Every night before bed, perform the pouring out the poison cup ritual. Visualize all the frustration, betrayal, and harsh words of the day as a black liquid contained in your mind, and decisively pour it down the drain. You let go not because their actions are acceptable. You let go because your health, your heart, and your sleep are too expensive, too luxurious to be stained by such garbage. A warrior never goes into battle with a backpack full of rocks from the past. Drop the load so you can move faster. We now step into the second layer of defense. If the nuclear arsenal is for emergency situations, the defensive shields are the foundational armor that helps you maintain a state of invulnerability over the long term. Principle number 5, understanding ignorance. When someone behaves rudely, cuts you off in traffic, or says thoughtless things, our first instinct is to label them as evil. We believe they did it intentionally to hurt us, but Socrates had a different, more humane and practical perspective. No one knowingly does evil. They do wrong because they lack knowledge. They are ignorant. Imagine this. Do you get angry at a 3-year-old child when they accidentally break your favorite cup? No. You might regret the loss of the cup, but you do not hate the child. Why? Because you know they didn't mean it. They are just clumsy and don't know better. So why do you get angry at an adult who possesses the mindset of a child? When facing someone who is losing control, shift your position. Do not view them as an equal enemy. View them as a patient. They are suffering a seizure of lack of education, of unhealed psychological trauma, or of a bad day that they lack the character to handle. When you place yourself in the position of a doctor looking at a patient, anger vanishes, replaced by tolerance or even pity. You cannot be angry at someone who is in a lower position than you in terms of awareness. Principle number 6, internal audit. This is a technique from the depth psychology of Carl Jung. He called it facing the shadow. There's a hard truth. The things that annoy you most in others are often reflections of the terrible qualities being suppressed within yourself. Do you despise show-offs? Perhaps because deep down you also crave attention, but your pride won't let you show it. Are you annoyed by undisciplined people? Perhaps because you yourself are struggling day and night with your own laziness. We project our shadow onto others to have an excuse to judge them instead of fixing ourselves. Every time anger flares up because of someone else's behavior, pause the criticism. Conduct an internal audit. Ask your conscience, have I ever behaved like them? In the past, have I ever been insensitive, selfish, or head-headed like that? The answer, if you are honest enough, is usually yes. The moment you realize your own imperfections, the fire of judgment is extinguished. You shift from the position of a harsh judge to the position of an empathetic human. You forgive them,
which means you are also forgiving the flawed part within yourself. Principle number 7, view from above. This was the favorite technique of Emperor Marcus Aurelius. Anger and suffering often stem from inflating our ego too much. We think our pain is the center of the universe. Our problems are global catastrophes. But what is the truth? When you feel stuck or angry, perform the zoom out exercise. Close your eyes. Imagine floating out of this room. Look down on the city where you live, seeing millions of people rushing about. Fly higher. Look down at Earth as a tiny blue marble in the dark void. Place the event that is making you angry into the 4 billion-year flow of Earth's history. The fact that a colleague spoke ill of you, that you were late for an appointment, or a scratch on your car, do those things really matter that much? Under the lens of the cosmos, all human problems are as small as specks of dust. When you see yourself small, your pain also becomes trivial, and what is trivial is not worth your anger. This perspective brings absolute tranquility. Let's put philosophy aside for a moment and talk like pragmatic economists. Every emotion has a price tag, and the price of anger is incredibly expensive. Seneca once said, "Anger always does more harm to the vessel in which it is stored than to the object on which it is poured." When you go mad to demand justice or vent your rage, what are you paying with? You pay with cardiovascular health. You pay with a suppressed immune system. You pay with an unproductive workday. You pay with the peace of your family when you bring a sour face home. Before deciding to get angry, do a quick economic calculation. Is this trivial event, this stranger's word, this minor inconvenience, worth trading for a headache and a terrible day? Investment-wise, this is a heavily losing trade. You are holding the precious gold coins of time and health and throwing them into a furnace just to burn a single rat. Do not burn down your own house just to catch a mouse. Let's look at the financial report of your body after a 5-minute rage. Do you think it's free? Absolutely not. Medical studies from Harvard University have shown that an explosive outburst of anger increases the risk of a heart attack by 5 times and the risk of stroke by 3 times in the next 2 hours. Your immune system is suppressed for the next 6 hours, making you susceptible to illness. That's not to mention the opportunity cost. In the 2 hours you sit fuming, heart pounding, looping thoughts about the person who insulted you. What could you have achieved? How much money could you have made? How much joy could you have enjoyed with your family? That is not the action of a man of substance. That is the action of a terrible investor destroying his own legacy. Principle number 9, humor as shield. There is an interesting psychological rule. Anger and humor cannot coexist in the brain at the same time. If you can laugh at the problem, you have conquered it. Look at the people who are being aggressive towards you through the lens of a comedy sitcom. Observe them closely. Red face, flailing arms, foaming at the mouth, eyes bulging, all over a trivial matter. Do they look scary? No, they look ridiculous. They look like bad comedians trying too hard to act in an over-the-top tragedy. Instead of cringing in fear or tensing up to confront them, practice smiling at the absurdity of the situation. View life as a grand play, and the person provoking you is just a glitching NPC inserted by the screenwriter to test the patience of the main character, you. When you laugh, you strip them of their power. You turn tragedy into comedy, and no one can hurt a man who is laughing. And finally, the ultimate weapon of Stoicism, Memento Mori. Remember that you must die. This is the final checkpoint, the strongest medicine for every ailment of the soul. Our time is finite and is running out every second, every breath. Both you and the person aggressing you will, sooner or later, return to dust and be forgotten forever in the flow of time. Wasting precious moments of life, a non-renewable resource, on hatred and arguing is the most luxurious and foolish act of a human life. Every time you feel you cannot forgive, ask yourself this question: if tomorrow I don't wake up, or they are gone forever, would I want our final moment together to be this argument? Death has the magical ability to put everything in its proper place. In the face of life's finiteness, all petty conflicts become meaningless. The inflated ego instantly dissolves. Only the appreciation of life and compassion between humans sharing the same mortal fate remain. Emperor Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the ancient world, wrote in his journal, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." We often live as if we have infinite time. We spend hours arguing about politics online, days holding grudges against loved ones over trivial things like dishes or trash. We act as if we will live forever to have time to make amends. But try this mental exercise. Look at the person making you angry. Imagine this is the last time you will ever see them. Imagine that tomorrow one of you receives a terrible medical diagnosis or a sudden accident occurs. At that moment, would your current frustration, your bruised ego still matter? Or would you regret not using those final moments to be kinder? Death is not something to be feared. Death is the greatest filter to remove the bullshit from your life. Outro: Building the Citadel. Those are the 10 layers of protection of an inner citadel. Possessing these 10 weapons does not mean you will become an emotionless rock. You are human. You will still have emotions. You will still have moments of heat. But the difference lies here. You are no longer a slave to your emotions. You have a choice. You can choose to react like a beast or respond like a king. You can choose to drink the poison cup or choose to purify your mind. You can burn down the house or choose to protect your health. A cool head is the most dangerous weapon, but also the most precious asset of a man in this chaotic world. Start building your citadel today, starting with that 3-second gap. Thank you.